Eastern Standard Time. It's LinkedIn Live Hour of Empower. I am so honored and proud to have one of who I believe is a trailblazer and individual who really opens a lot of roads and brings a lot of people with her. I want to introduce Leslie Flowers. You've seen her before, and you've seen her quite a bit on the sidebar, making very insightful comments. I want to remind everybody and encourage everybody that chat's open. We depend on you to direct our thoughts and conversations. We're trying to achieve as many quality takeaways from this show that you can apply right after you leave here. Mm-hmm. And it's you who we're here for, and we want to do our best we can to respect and help you. So with that said, let's say hello to Leslie. Leslie can now say hello to you and share kind of a little bit more about herself and what she's into. And today's key word, central thought word, is trust. And I believe so much is dependent of trust that it's a great word for today. So with that, Leslie, take it away.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm very excited to be here. And I want to tell a tale on Donald, right? For those who are here right at 11 o'clock. So Donald has changed the topic of this talk in 1 week 4 times. And he never tells me in advance. So one day it's this, another day it's this. And the ones that I volunteered, he didn't pay any attention to. And so yesterday I look again and I see it's about trust. Well, I trust you, Donald, enough to know that you will select a word that we can talk about, right, in a positive way and an empowering way. And in that light, I started to think, since you've moved hey Roxanne, since you've moved this hour of empower more into personal stories, which I absolutely agree, because you'll hear yourself in my stories. We're not so different. I got to think about, well, what could I talk about trust? Well, it didn't take long for me to come up with several things. The first one is trusting Donald. Like, if you haven't done this before and you think that your topic is one thing and it gets shifted around and it ends up being something you couldn't prepare for, right? You fears come up, right? That's usually the fear of criticism. I'll probably screw it up. And you get upset and you forget about why we're doing this all together. Mm-hmm. Right? That you actually have all the answers within you. So I knew right away. So the first thing is about trust, which is Donald, who is an empower mechanic, if you will, machine, right? So I love the platform and what he's done. I don't think I could keep up with his pace. So I was in corporate for 45 years in publishing. And my last 10 years in corporate, I was the only executive assistant in startup companies. So I helped raise money, I liaised with the board, I did due diligence when we sold the companies. And over the last 25 years, overlapping some in that, I became an entrepreneur, which positioned you and me, good morning, in a unique position. If you, and you probably have, worked in corporate and entrepreneurship, the expertise that you have could likely be shared with any audience, right? Because the things that we do and we teach others and that we've learned work in all areas of life. When you set a goal in business, the way you go about it can be exactly the same as the way you set a goal for your personal life, right? Or for your education or anything like that. So being experts, hi everybody, being an expert, you already are. You're an expert to people who don't know what you know. So here's a story about trust. And really what I want to know about from you is, can we ever 100% trust anybody? Or is there anything that we will do or believe 100%? Is that even possible? Right? We're not robots, and we have human frailties. So I'm not even sure you could 100% trust someone. That's kind of where my mind went. Now, you probably, if you're like everybody else, you may have had a marriage or long term relationship that broke up. And very often it's about trust, not telling the truth, keeping things secret, right? You get the drill. So I was married to a most wonderful man for 30 years. We raised 2 cats in the yard and 2 children. Life used to be so hard, but everything was easy because of him. And then when the kids grew up and went on their way, he had his midlife crisis. We'll just leave it at that. And our marriage broke up, and there was a lot of betrayal and trust. 30 years is a long time to trust somebody. And way back then, I didn't even look at the books. I didn't have my own account like my kids do. So I just trusted everything, right? That's how I was raised. My parents did that. Well, I will tell you that it took 15 years to repair that relationship back to trust and friendship. 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Getting over the betrayal and the breaking of trust, I think, was the biggest challenge I've ever had in my life. And what about you? How did you, and in business, I've had business experiences, I bet you have too, where you have a relationship with someone in business and they lie or they withhold. And in your value system, you don't feel like you can trust them. Can you work your way back, and how do you do it? How's that? Back over to you, Donald.
Okay, good question. Before I address it, let me recognize and all these wonderful people who come here every day, and I'm so grateful because it makes it worth me coming to be here with everybody. So as important as it is for people to be here, it's just as important, more important, to be here for everyone and everyone for each other. With that said, Roxanne's here. Roxanne's just great. Has been on the show a couple times. Kelly's an anchor here, has done so much to make this show as great as it is. And I couldn't have done it without all the co-hosts, without the audience. Lillian had a great conversation the other day. She's going to be on the show. I believe anybody who comes for the audience should also get a spotlight and an opportunity for their true voice to be heard, because everybody's voice is important. It's a reflection of their life. And in most cases, that no one has listened to it in a patient, understanding way, that can make such a difference in people's confidence and third-party validation. With that, Lillian, saying hello to Roxanne, saying hello to Kelly. It's nice to be so civil and everybody being good morning-ish. Hello, everyone. I hope your Wednesday is abundantly well. Great topic, Don and Leslie. Kim's just a wonderful lady. Has been on the show and will be on again. Lillian, back at Kim. Kim, so glad you made it. Friends, bringing friends is the way to go. Hello, Rita and Eugene. Me and Rita have been having some great conversations, and she's got some wonderful ideas. Lillian knows Rita. Kim, Leslie, thanks for sharing your beautiful voice. Pauline, great Wednesday to everybody. Great Wednesday to you, Pauline. It's always a good day when you're here. Christine, who's juggling so many balls. I can't believe how much she accomplishes. Leslie Flowers is a real deal, y'all. Kim says, I agree. Leslie is amazing on many levels. It's great to hear that, because we don't know what we don't know. And if no one tells us, it takes us a lot longer to figure it out. Harvey's here. Hello, everyone. He's getting to be a regular on Fridays with Christy. This is one big, wonderful community, and it is based on trust, and it is based on taking responsibility and being accountable and showing up You're always the example of hopefully what you want people to model and return back to you. Back to Leslie's question of betrayal and trust. Well, since we do a new word every day, and every word has different ways of being understood and delivered, there is no, I believe, absolutes when it comes to any word. So it's not trust or not trust. It's, does someone deserve trust? And how much trust do you give them? I mean, so if you're the banker and someone comes to you and wants to borrow trust from you, what collateral, what due diligence do you have in place to say you deserve it? And then how many times do you pull the loan when they're not making interest payments and they're not supporting it? So you're the decision maker as to what you give, what you continue to give, what you choose to take back. And I think part of trust is communication, because if you're not talking, you create mysteries. You start to fill in gaps that you shouldn't have to, that someone should just share with you. And on the other side, you can't communicate with anybody you can't trust because nothing means anything, right? So in one way, you've shut off the communication. Another way, the communication's necessary. So betrayal, when something happens over time continually, it can't be a surprise, right? It can't be a shock if every week the same person or the same event happens, and you can't wake up and say, how does this happen if it's always happening? So it's not betrayal anymore. It's acceptance of something you don't want or need. In business, you take hits all the time, right? Shoplifting, employee shrinkage, and you look at it and you say, wow, got to take a hit here, right? Write this bad AR off, right? They're never going to pay. Well, you just look at everything in the same way, and if you make things about it and not about you, and especially not about people, you just put it all together and say it's a hit, because if you had nothing to do with it, and it's going to continue to happen. What didn't happen in my business is I had an open door policy, and I can't tell you how many personal loans I made to people. When someone died, they need an airplane ticket, right? Somebody had to buy a house and they needed a few more bucks for the down payment. And I always did it through me. So it wasn't like crazy accounting or who's this and why are we giving this person money? And you know what? I always got paid back, no matter who I lent it to. And you know what happened as a result? My auditing firm couldn't believe how little losses I had on inventory, right? Because if they could ask for the money, they don't have to steal it. And some people are in bad situations, I mean, they're in a bad way where they got to decide this or that. And both of them aren't very good. And sometimes they betray their trust. So anyways, I hope that answers the question, which is if personal betrayal is a lot harder. In business, you expect shoplifting, you expect people not to pay their bills on time, you expect employees who you don't know, and that's the key to getting to know people better before you provide trust for those people. So at the end of the day, no matter what your role, you've got to take responsibility and accountability for it. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? And if that person becomes that, now they're that new person, right? They're not that old person anymore. So real quick, Lillian says hello to Harvey. Harvey says hello to Lillian. Linda has a great comment here. Yes, can say after being put down in marriage, had to learn to trust who I could be again. And one job changed owners, knew the man, but not the real man, till he showed me he wanted more than just my office business skills, a requirement to get hours. That's why you got to be with a community of support. You got to be with people you trust just because you know them on a daily basis, and you don't have anything at risk with conversations, with communications. And it's like any investment. Where are you placing your time and trust? And what's your return on it? When I did turnarounds, everything was money in, money out. The first things to go were the things that didn't return what you paid for them, and you prioritize. But go ahead, Leslie.
I was gonna, if it's okay, I'd like to acknowledge Linda,
Okay.
because I really, the things that you're talking about take time. This is where personal development, continuous learning, the things that Donald is talking about, he's there. He's still learning, but he has spent a lifetime, as I have, distinguishing these things, developing our values, and then making decisions of how much trust is it going to take, right? So I do want to share something. Let's see what Linda said here. I do want to share one thing, though, from after the 30 years and the 15 years. Our family was gorgeous and it was broken. I took the low road. You know that? They always say, right? Those who have been through it and have had plenty of time to heal, oh, take the high road. I did not. I took the low road. I was a mother bear fighting to keep those memories. It wasn't the money. What I learned was when a long term marriage breaks up, all the memories, the war stories, who do you tell them to? So now I have a really good time telling my grandkids about what their daddy did and what their mama did when they were little, so I can talk to them about it. After 15 years, I had the breakthrough, right? The woman that my ex had gotten involved with and ended up with became very ill. And we didn't have Christmas together for 15 years. And we had Christmas every year together. It was the big highlight. The marriage, as far as I'm concerned, the whole family was disrupted. The roots were cut to the earth. And I realize I'm the only one who could repair those roots. So, long story short, one Christmas, I said to my ex, why don't you bring your wife and come for Christmas Eve? And we won't tell the children. Now, the grandchildren hadn't seen their grandfather and grandmother together. They don't know us together. They're teenagers now. They never saw us like their parents did. And I made the kids wait Christmas Eve. And of course, he was late, which, right? So who's coming, Mama? Who's coming? And I did it for them.
Mm-hmm.
She died the next year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took time. This is what I want, this business of self-actualization and being able to trust again. You have to put in the time. You have to do the work until your values are so clear that you will acknowledge them. Now, I'll give you another one with a client I had once. I have a list of affirmations that people agree to. It's about integrity, doing what you say you'll do, right? I'm masterful at teaching Think and Grow Rich and universal law. And this is what I've been doing for 15 years. And I had a client recently who wouldn't pay their bill. And it's the complete opposite of what we've been studying for 3 months. Being your word, expressing yourself. It's a safe space, right? These are private conversations, very small groups. And then this had gone on and on. And one day I said, Leslie, this person is not appreciating this structure. This person is taking the place of another person who is ready to walk the talk. And it was really hard for me because what's pulling at me, and probably you too, is that fear of poverty, right? Particularly for women new in business, we have to have money, right? So the biggest dilemma for me is, now I chose my values and let him go. And did not allow the money that he paid me every month, which he hadn't been paying, right? That would absolve the poverty. So all of these things, keep learning, keep distinguishing things for yourself. If you are screwed over enough times, you'll get the message when you're ready for the message.
Yeah, and I think it's just how, they say it's not how many times you fall down, it's how fast you get up, right? And what is, and what's done is done. Now you can go back and relive it, but it ain't going to change it. You can share it, but it won't change it.
That's right.
And the sooner you just decide it's not going to change, is the sooner you got to decide to do something that you can change. Now, on the flip side, talking about the word trust, if you look at the value of it when it's done right, right? When people come through, when people under
Yes.
promise and over deliver,
Yes.
and they keep building trust and they keep building goodwill, because trust can be exchanged for goodwill, and when people do good for others without a return on it, without an expectation, and with a desire to give from the heart, you trust that person, right? If someone keeps giving without receiving, why wouldn't you trust that person? If you can't trust that person, can you trust yourself to trust anybody? Right? If everybody's providing exactly what you want and need and don't ask you anything returning, you still question them. How many questions do you need? Because you can undo something.
So,
Again,
Donald,
what's
excuse
that?
me. I wanted to look at Kristen's. Sorry for interrupting, but I love what she said here. Can you put that back up, please? That
Christine?
Christine, excuse me. So she believes in the power of change. And here's the thing that is profound about this message for me. Sometimes it doesn't seem fair in the end, but things have happened that I never expected. My kids never expected to see their father and his wife at our house at Christmas. And it reminds me of my favorite quote of all time. If one advances confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavors to live the life they've imagined, they will meet with success in hours uncommon. Thoreau. Now, here's the thing. What Thoreau is saying is if one advances confidently, just move toward what you want, continue learning, and endeavors to live the life they've imagined, makes an attempt. Nobody says that you have to jump, right, or leap to it. Then you will meet with success in hours uncommon. That was the result, right, of my children's faces when their father and his sick wife stepped in to my living room. That was the success unexpected. When somebody does something for you unexpected, it is really that's success. That's where you're going to make your money. You're not going to make your money, and I've figured this out. I'm pretty sure about this. Trading hours.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen in this kind of a relationship that we have here, all of us? There are going to be businesses that form. They already have. We've already got people who didn't know how to go live, going live, and actually doing it afraid. The way you achieve that I've learned throughout my life is doing the thing that lights you up that you've never done before, because it keeps me motivated long enough to achieve the goal. So I don't know how to do it, but it has a big why and a big impact. Okay, so like there's some really, so thank you, Christine, for that, because that quote speaks everything. Take small steps, keep on learning, keep your eyes open for the unexpected successes. Those are the everyday miracles, aren't they, Donald?
Yeah, and here's another thing that can complement what you've been saying, and I think you
Please.
make some really great points. Is again taking trust, and there's an element of dependency when you trust somebody, right? You give somebody money, you depend on them to give it back. They tell you they're going to be home by 10, you depend on them to be home by 10, right? Or give you a call or something. That's where communication comes in. Well, if you don't depend on people as much, as you have more people to choose from, not one person, you're talking about a marriage of 30 years. I mean, when you're talking about an employee of 6 months, you might have 3 conversations with, right? And they took something out the door. It's not like, wow, It's just, again, well, we took a hit. Maybe I'll learn not to hire a person like that. And in time, and I think that's the benefit of being older, a little bit wiser, a lot more experienced, is you start matching things up, right? The first time somebody does something to you, you can't believe it. This has never happened to me. How could this person do it? Again, after a while, like if it happens every 3, 4 months, you just decide this is going to be part of the journey, right? And you're going to have a flat tire here and there. You're going to have to fix it. But you can't make the next person pay for someone else's action. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and we're talking about maybe putting something together as some consulting thing. And he tells me about the loss he just took by someone who took advantage of him. And because of that, he's changing the way he does things. And I'm thinking to myself, I wasn't part of that. I wasn't that guy. Now, all of a sudden, because of a bad experience, you're changing how you are with everybody, right?
Well, you're a leader. So what you're doing is emulating. And as we look to you and any one of us here, in a safe, belonging space, we're going to take on those qualities. We're looking for the qualities we already have. So, if someone takes advantage of you and you're surprised, that's because that's not who you are. Why have I attracted? And I had this recently with a fender bender. I trusted this woman. It wasn't much. We didn't do the police report. She said she'd pay. And then her husband stepped in and said, well, you could have all sorts of accidents and then blame me. So what I realized, and then have us pay for it. So here's the deal. You look for who you are. If you don't trust people, it's because people don't trust you and you don't trust yourself. We are reflections of other people. So the more you look for the greatness in others, that's one of the affirmations in my program, is if you're looking for the greatness or what is missing for them that would make them a success, your own greatness grows. Your ability to see it and your intention of looking for the best in people. And then when the best doesn't show up, well, you have to look at that. Well, there's my lesson. How many times will I let this happen until I trust my intuition, right? And that I don't need, my son has this all the time. He hires in a service drive for a big Chevy dealership, right? It's really challenging to get people that are their word and that show up and everything. And he goes through this all the time. So it's like this process of knowing who you are and what you'll accept, then looking for that. And you will draw to you those people. And then occasionally the universe will drop in a real negative person just to wake you up and have you check your own values. What do you think?
I think that's well said. Let me go back to our audience. Harvey.
Yes, please.
Tim Wheatley Morris, you're welcome. It was such a feel-good film. I'll have to check it out. Thank you, Harvey. Dr. Joanne's here. She was a wonderful guest the other day. So happy to be attracting so many wonderful people. Rita's in the same category. Another wonderful individual who brings so much knowledge and experience. And, Linda, again, oh yes, Leslie, growing and learning, even though my health challenge has built me to be able to help me encourage others to be able to pivot and grow. As in my 70s, I've now worked to help others get through moments and move forward to become more. We've got Roxanne, I believe. We think of trust as 100 and anything less is seen as negative. We don't expect perfection in anything else. So maybe 90% trust is still enough. Your thoughts?
We talked about that. It's like a scale to acknowledge that it's like there's a scale of trust. So it isn't the one end or the other. It's somewhere in between. Yes?
I believe it took love, humility, and openness to include your ex and wife to join for Christmas. Christine says the power of kindness to create change is underrated and it starts at home. Lillian, I had a friend who I helped start her marriage ministry and help with having events. When the opportunity came for her to speak at a conference for a married couple, she acknowledged everyone but me. I invest my money when she didn't have enough. It's not funny, but it's true. Wow, I really am inspired with your story, Leslie. Thank you, Ambambola. You are just one of the finest people. We've got Omar. Good morning, guys. Happy Wednesday. And to follow up on what Leslie's saying with trust, I don't have an issue with it because you have to build a reserve, just like insurance that says certain people aren't. But you know what? I know that in advance. But I'll tell you one thing, if you stop trusting, if you stop believing in the goodness of people, you're going to restrict yourself, right? You're going to save yourself for some maybe future anguish, but eliminate a lot of opportunities and be the better person. I mean, and we're really talking about majoring in the minors in most cases, right? I mean, when I had my e-commerce thing, I had like 12 people in customer service on the phone every day. And I said to them, if you're going to do something, do it fast and do it with a smile, right? Because your time is worth more and I'll get it worked out, right? So, if it was $10, give it to them. I don't even care if they bought it from us. Just take care of them, because a bad customer talks to 7 people where a good customer talks to 3 people, right? And everybody has the right to charge back anything for any reason, and they'll get their money. And if you know this, you just say, hey, why put my customer service people in a jam, right? They don't want an irate customer for 30 minutes to talk to them. You know what happens then? It gets elevated to somebody like me, right? It's like, I want to talk to your supervisor. And now I got to talk to somebody. And meanwhile, we got $100 worth of time into a $10 deal. And I'm saying, if you look at that with trust. Well, you lend somebody a Tupperware dish and they never returned it, right? Now, is that betrayal? No, it's probably forgetfulness or something else. And here's the other thing. How many times did you figure somebody for something? And until you learned a lot more, did you understand there's something? So, if you're going to be concerned with someone trusting you, how much trust are you giving that person until you hear the story? I always tell people, you should buy some vowels before you solve the puzzle, and you can't unring a bell. Right.
Donald, you know what? You brought up something at the beginning of this last paragraph that you shared, right? And that we haven't addressed. And it's probably the most important thing of all. Do you trust yourself? So let me give you a little story, okay, that happened. So, and this is in real time. It finished up yesterday, right? So I had been following a guy in India who's brilliant. Everything he wrote, I mean, he seemed to be a sage. He seemed rather young. He wrote beautifully, and this isn't even his first language. And I love writing. And I didn't even comment because for the first 6 months, because it's so valuable. I wanted to make sure that whatever I wrote, this guy has over 100,000 followers, like way out of my league, really, on LinkedIn, if you will. But I've been watching. Well, one day, about 6 months ago, he made a post about goal setting, and achievement is my specialty. And so I was able to give a valuable comment. And I had done several, and he always came back. Well, in that moment, when I saw him writing about my topic, right, I sent him a message and I said, Jitinder, would you like to do a live with me? And he responded, yes. Now, I have to tell you, in that moment, if I hadn't moved on that creative thought right then, I never would have done it, because my own belief in myself would have been, what I would have heard first was, he doesn't want to be bothered with you. Who are you? Right? The same old stuff. Even though I've been doing this work for 15 years, I've set 60 goals, created 60 new beliefs. It doesn't matter. Those old conversations are whispers. But I proceeded to Dr. Joanne's point on perseverance. So then we had several conversations, challenging 8.5 or 9.5 hours difference. I couldn't get the India time right. There was nothing but, time and energy in putting this thing together, which occurred yesterday. The day before yesterday, I was testing the studio in Restream, and I got a representative, the worst possible representative. 45 minutes, all he did was tell me how I did it wrong. I'd have to reschedule, maybe this, maybe that. He threw this article at me, spoke to me as though I was one of his colleagues rather than like a fourth grader, because who the hell knows what they're talking about with RTMP and STMP, right? And it was aggravated. I was shaking, and he kept saying, "You're going to have to do this over." I had one split second when I said, "Well, I guess I could do this again." And then I remembered that this had happened before. And I knew there was an answer to fix this. So I logged out after 45 minutes and I came back in and got my favorite rep. And in 15 minutes, we had it solved. So I trusted that I knew that there was a way to solve this. And I was not having this representative who was dancing between a dozen chats, throwing information at me and not helping. I did not give up. I had faced all odds, and then we had it yesterday. It was great.
Yeah, but
Trust yourself.
yeah, but I think that I look at my experience, and everything great that I ended up accomplishing was with someone else.
Mm.
And I tell the story about, I was in a restaurant, actually a really nice restaurant, at the end of a conference. It was a small group, probably about 25 people. We met every year in some beautiful places and had some unbelievable guest speakers. And it was the end of it, and I didn't really accomplish what I wanted. And a guy next to me says, "Are you going to eat your cheesecake?" Right? And it was like, I didn't even know the guy. I didn't even look. I just said, "No, never touched it. Be my guest." Had a glass of wine, never drank it. I said, "You can have that too." And then he just went on, right? And he said, "Oh, I see you're from Denver. My grandkids are in Denver. I'm going there next week. I heard about your business. I'd love to have an opportunity to see it." And, he's from Detroit, where I was originally from, and my mother was still there at the time. And I said, "Great." And he had a lumber yard, something he owned, right? Anyways, the guy turned out to be a billionaire. Mm-hmm. And we became partners for 12 years. And I remember when we finally had to put something together, documentation, because we went partners on a couple things. And he had his lawyer who was there every Thursday at his headquarters, and we were going over the documentation. I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden he comes up with like a piggyback clause that I didn't quite understand, and he wanted it. And I said, "Well, if Fred wants it, I want it too." And then they both look at me, Fred and the lawyer, and they stare at me, right? And Fred says, "Well, I'll tell you, Don, I'll give you whatever you want, but 100 pages is not going to save you if I'm not happy, right? But I will tell you one thing, that if anything comes together here and it's not what it should be, I'll fix it." And I said, "Hey, Fred, I'm so sorry, talked out of turn. Whatever you put out there, I'm going to sign." And everything was a handshake for 12 years. And every time there was something that wasn't right, he fixed it. And I could have went with the legal side of it or anything. And at a certain point, you look in somebody's eyes and you see how they feel. And you can know if you can trust them. And, trust is something, again, that's not absolute. It needs to be reviewed, right? Just like bank loans aren't automatically, extended, right? It's like, okay, where's your collateral? And here's another thing. And I think taking responsibility and accountable, anything that's been happening, there were probably signs it was happening, right? For something to change, there's things that show up that are unusual, how people talk, how people respond. And, a lot of people don't want to see those things. They don't want to explore what could be because they're afraid of what they might see. So they're hoping maybe it's not happening, it's in denial. But until you call it out, until you stand up for yourself and say, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable here." If you make it about you and not them, it's an easy conversation. If you come out firing and saying boom, boom, boom. Now they're defensive. Now they're going to justify it. Maybe they're going to walk away. And you got to ask yourself, why did, how many conversations do you get into that you say, fast forward, I know where this is leading, right? And you say, why do I get into these things with these people for so long when I knew right up front I could have saved myself the time and aggravation? I mean, if you spend 45 minutes with a person and somebody says after 3 minutes, I'm not comfortable with you, give me somebody else. Because I used to do turnarounds or restructurings, and I'd always get someone said, we can't do it, or I won't do it. And I always say, do you sign the checks over there? And if they would say no, I said, well, let me talk to someone who does. I'm going to make sure they know about what you're doing here too. Right. So, I mean, and that's how you got to be, is you got to be someone strong enough, and you got to be the first ones to make communications with people and ask questions, not make accusations. It's like, hey, this doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain this? But let me finish with these people or we'll never see them. So you are a superhero. I just sent Leslie Flowers a connection request. Can I please be your new best friend, please? And thank you. I mean, Christine's unbelievable. Once you know Christine, you know what it takes to be a mother, to have a corporate career. She's going after an MBA at the same time, and she's doing all these other things, and she does it so well. Lillian, Christine, I know that that's the best friend we all need. Christine, I want to be her bestie, and I will fight you for it. Bah, ha, ha. Thank you. Harvey comes back with, love that story, Don. Sometimes there is just trust. There are people that you just trust at the moment. You can't have very much without trust. And life without people who you trust is you being on the defensive and being concerned about losing something instead of you being proactive and not letting the past define your future, and be the first one to trust. Now, here's the key to trust, I believe. It's easier and cheaper to learn early than late, right? As soon as you meet somebody, it's better to give them $5 and never see them again if they're never going to pay you, than end up spending a year and being in for thousands, right? When you could have tested the waters. And too many people bite off more they can chew, right? I mean, if you can't trust them for a lot, trust them for a little. And if you can't trust them at all, don't.
Don, I wanted to go back to your story, the story about the 12 years and how it occurred magically, if you will. You didn't do anything. This is the same kind of thing. It's like if you've ever been going home from an airport and you're sitting waiting for your flight and it's delayed and you have something really important on the other end, right? And you realize that you're not going to make it. And so your head is down and you're grumbling to yourself, and there's someone sitting next to you.
Mm-hmm.
That is who was next to Donald. And his head wasn't down. He was looking around, expecting. You see, what we want is moving toward us at the same amplitude of vibration or velocity as we're moving toward it. See if you like this. The level of trust you get from others is in direct proportion to the level of trust you extend to others.
Mm-hmm.
The level of trust will exceed or match the level of trust extended to you. So that's kind of a way to realize that whoever shows up, it's either to lift us up or teach us a lesson. That's it.
No, I think that's a great way of having that perspective. What comes to mind is if you are majoring in the minors, right? If you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies, and you're keeping score on those kind of things, a lot of ways I'll trust people for so much because it doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't cost me anything. And if they get something for nothing, that's great for them. I wish I got more for nothing, right? Mm-hmm. And I wish, people, and when you give and you depend on something back in return, that's not trust.
No.
That's transactional relationship. It's like, I'll give you a day off, you give me a day off. And if you don't give it to me, you don't get it. Versus, hey, you know what I learned? and it'll be 45 years. We'll have our 45th anniversary, me and my wife. And I learned that every yes gets you another yes in return, and every no gets you another no in return. And everybody's going to do
Exactly.
what they're going to do. The difference is, will you know about it and be part of it, or will you find out later, right? And what I realized too is 98% of everything that comes through is like, I've got an opinion, but it's like tomato, tomato. I mean, I don't really care what a lot of people, what's important to them isn't important to me. So when you say, go ahead, do it, right? That's not transactional. It just says it's not worth even dealing with,
Oh,
right?
look at ding, 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 what Rita has here.
Okay, first let me get to Linda. We got to go
Oh,
into a great morning of discussion
keep
and
changing.
community today. Kim says, I agree. I attended a leadership conference and the statement of caution was made, don't be a public success and a private failure. I think that's very, very important. Let me go to a
Yes.
hiring practice shared by a friend who owned a trucking company was to leave a $20 bill on the floor of the truck cab. Make an excuse to step away for a moment and give the opportunity to steal from you before you hire them. Test first, Roxanne. That's kind of interesting because, it used to happen too at work. And the story would be is somebody would drop something like a piece of paper on the floor, right? Maybe not even knowing it. And you'd wonder how many people would walk by that and not pick it up.
Yeah.
And you wonder again, what are these people thinking? Because what comes around goes around, right? And what you model is what you're going to see more of. And when you can explain trust to people who may not know what it is or how to use it, you're giving them a tip, right? If someone buys a piece of equipment, you'd want to go over it. Hey, do you know how to operate this thing and how to do it safely? Well, if
Mhm.
someone says, I don't know if you realize this, but I'm trusting you with something that's important to me, right? Can I depend on you to come through for me? Now you're getting a verbal commitment. So if you have a question of trust, make sure that people have an understanding. And if you're not ready or capable, don't worry about it. We'll do it another time. So you could prevent somebody from not knowing or thinking, in most cases, what happens in trust when people don't use it well is they under anticipate and under expect who you really are, right? They think they can get away with it. They think they're that smart, you
Mhm.
know? But, one thing I learned about being totally honest is you never need a memory,
That's right.
right? Because if you're always telling the truth, and why wouldn't you? The people who don't tell the truth are not only not trustworthy, they're cowardly.
But this is most people, right? So you have an ideal, which is the reflection of who you are. And those are the people you attract. But the truth is that most people are not self-aware. Everybody, or most everybody, does automatic reactions instead of responding. I wanted to go back to Rita's statement because she dropped something in there that's
Is
like a
it
mic
this one?
drop. It's there. It is.
Okay.
So, if you don't mind,
No.
so what she's talking about here is consistent behavior. You can regain trust if, in spaced, consistent intervals over time, you modify your behavior to trust or where it was, right? So this is the key to success. This is a key to having anything you want. This is how we got our beliefs. Our beliefs match our results. If you don't know what you believe, look at your results. That's what you believe you're capable of and deserving of. And you can create new beliefs, right, that outweigh the old ones that second guess you. But this is the key that Dr. Rita is talking about here. Whatever you do is going to take time. Do it in spaced, consistent intervals over time, and you will form a new belief, a new habit, and it will take precedent over the old way of thinking. And I thought that that was really an important thing as far as trusting yourself. Even when we know we can do something and we've done it before, we still second guess ourselves.
Sure. Well, here's the thing is when you are saying all this, and when we talk about most people, the last thing I want to be is most people
That's
or
right.
working with most people. I've
I
always
agree.
taken the road less traveled. The reason I'm so enjoying this is it got away from the mob on normal LinkedIn where everybody's posting, commenting, wink, wink, nod, nod, building connections, building conversations. No one's monetizing, no one's going to harvest, but everybody's, trying to compete with everybody else who's not doing anything except making noise. And to get away from the noise, it says, hey, grab 40 of your best buddies, find an island in the sun like this, and hang out and knowledge share as much as you can, story share. And that's why the next evolution of this went from strategy to mindset to storytelling. And maybe the next 7 days that I maybe put another hour up would be the library of stories, right? Would be another title for that. And that way everybody's equal if they're a storyteller. And sometimes the people can tell a story best are better than the people who have best stories who can't tell it to entertain, to educate, to inspire, because those are only three things you can achieve. A combination here is what is the value to the audience, right? If everything, I look at this show as first priority is audience, second is to show, third is to co-host, and the fourth is to me. It's all bottom up, right? And why would we be here if we're not here to help people? And the people are here for promotion, for just want to be seen and heard because that's what they're into, is being seen and heard and not having other people really get benefit. So that's different. I've had so many people want to speak here, but they would never align with the audience with the way their direction is, right? I
They're
mean,
not ready. Listen, the thing is, the reason why you're not overwhelmed with people, everybody gets that bug that isn't there more. Why is it so hard, or why does it seem to be a challenge to find a group like this where your point of view is respected? That is rare. I believe that everybody's point of view is right for them. I'm more curious about what it is about your view of something that I can add to what I know, which is growing in awareness, right? But all these people out there that are doing all this, we have to hold the space that one day they're going to get the curiosity. They're going to scratch their heads and say, isn't there any more? And they're going to find this group or create a new one. And the best thing you've done is you've spawned people in the community that have this same accepting belonging. You notice there's nothing nasty, there's nothing confrontational. It's more like, tell me what you know. I want to understand so I can be a better human being for others. This is rare, right? And, actually, I'm part of another group where something happened that broke the trust for me. And I love this group. I love all the people in it. And one person did something really unthoughtful, okay, publicly. And it took about 6 weeks to let it go. And I thought I let it go and I haven't. And it's no longer a space of trust for me because one person broke that film of security and belonging. And I think the most important thing is that that person never acknowledged it to the group. They acknowledged it to me. So for me, there's this thing hanging out there, right? And so I don't know, can I ever trust 100%? And that's where we began. Can you ever restore trust to that higher level where it was before? Or am I going to just have to deal with a lower level of trust in that group? What do you think, Don?
Well, here's what I think is when something happens, I try to take a little reflection time, right? Something happens and most people react. It's their instinct, right? Somebody does something to you and you come back with something good or bad. Well, once you get a time to sleep on it, think about it, the next day, maybe you'll do the same thing, but in most cases, you'll maybe soften it a little. But here's what I do is when it goes beyond that, I say, I'm not wrestling with something I don't know enough about. I'm going to talk to that person. And when anytime you call somebody up or say, hey, there's something we need to talk about, that alone scares people. Right?
Yes.
Like now it's like you're going to have a meetup, right? And you're going to have, a discussion. So real quick, they're going to think either they know what just happened and they found out and they want to talk to me about, or who knows what they want. And all of a sudden, I wouldn't say the fear, but the stress a little bit. Okay, and you got to talk. If they say, I don't want to talk to you, then that's even worse. Right? That means like it's kind of over at that point. And that's why getting a challenge and accepting it and letting it eat the inside of you out versus saying, I just don't understand this or this is so unlike you, right? For sure. That I need to talk to you. People only push where they think they can get away with something, right? And if you're strong and they know you're strong, either they're not going to do it or they better be in a position to address it. Because most people feel like people will just let it go. And when you do, it sets up a precedent to do it again, right? If someone's late and they don't call and you say, and that's the thing, you got to express how you feel, not about them. This is what it made me feel. I was worried or I had something else, but I didn't do it because I was expecting this or blah, 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 blah. But I think the key to everything is playing through, moving forward. At the end of the day, you come home to yourself no matter who you spend your day with, right? And you got to be happy with yourself and your situation. And anybody that does something against you, you got to take responsibility whether you deserve it or not. Just by a human being being on earth at the same time with somebody else gives you something relative to them, right? And if it was just outright bad, right? People are victimized every day. Look at the news. And when it happens to you, it's like, oh my God, how could this happen? Even though it happens every day. Mm-hmm. But here's what I do believe in. If you form enough trusted relationships and trusted people, you don't need to go beyond that, right? Once I met my partner for 12 years, I wasn't looking for another partner. And the last thing I would do is do anything. Because this guy, even told me I was the son he never had, and he treated me like that. And I always, when you got somebody who can write and take you anywhere, and we went places that you'd never believe, you don't question anything. And you even say, hey, you deserve to take advantage. I want you to have advantage, because what's hard about working with somebody who has so much is you can't really give them things except yourself. So with that, I know we're coming up end of hour. I want to thank Leslie so much. I also want to share that Leslie's really involved with Think and Grow Rich and has a program. If you want to just mention real quick, it's free. And I'm not here to promote things for sale, but I know value to the audience. And plus, it's a way of getting to know Leslie a little bit better. But again, it's just something Leslie wanted to offer in return for people's, appreciation of the show today. So Leslie.
Yes. And the most important thing about this is I had been doing this audio live for 11 weeks on Fridays at 11 o'clock in direct conflict, right? With not conflict at the same time. It's only a half-hour audio show. And I grappled with do I want to keep that? Because I had 11 weeks and I've got, some consistency. And one day I woke up and I decided to go live, do it on Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern. So this is complimentary. People who love Think and Grow Rich. It'll be stories about how you already are doing the things that were in that book. Come as you wish. And it's really because I trusted Donald and what Donald is doing that I gave up the advantage of having consistency of a bunch of people for 11 weeks to change the time so that he could attend maybe one time. So there you go. And thank you, everybody, for all the phenomenal comments. I'm going to take my brother to lunch and I have to leave right away. I will come back this afternoon and I will respond to every one of your comments. I will not forget to do that. So I've already accepted a couple of connection requests and I'm excited.
Well, it's so great to have you, Leslie. I always say this is the fastest hour on LinkedIn, and it just goes so quick, and we could have done another hour and have been like a day at the beach. So with that said, I want to thank the audience. Rest up in 23 hours. Tomorrow is just an unbelievable show. We have Kelly, but we also have Miriam Zyberglate. She's a wonderful lady from Florida, a doctor, has a terrific story. She's from Peru. And tune in for that. It's going to be a wonderful show. So thank you, Pauline. Ann Levy is such a wonderful lady. I keep complimenting her all the time because she is somebody who really, all of you, to me, are trusted relationships. And because trust is so hard to gain and easy to lose, I never will not be grateful for it. So with that, Rita, enjoy lunch, she says. Where are you going to lunch? Last question.
We're going to Bangkok 54 for Ty. It's his 71st birthday, and it'll take me 40 minutes. So I have enough time to get a drink of water and walk out the door.
Okay, tell us next time how the food was. And how your birthday went with your brother. So thank you, everybody. We'll talk again, 23 hours.